Do you think I wanted to be like her and be a housewife, homemaker? No, because that's not what my dad respected. I've spent my whole life trying to be perfect, pleasing an alcoholic father. You don't realize how you can use whatever this strong influence is, how much it affects your life. And I can recover from this. It's not going to define me. It's going to be part of my story, but it's not going to anymore define me. I'm no longer a people pleaser. I'm no longer someone that has to hide behind masks of who I am.
Welcome, Karen, to the Inside Addiction podcast. It's lovely to have you on the show.
It's a blessing to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I just wonder if you could start us off, Karen, by telling us a bit about your own relationship with addiction and how that fits into your life.
Well, I'm half Irish. Does that explain it? No. My father, his family came over potato famine years and worked hard in middle America, and alcohol addiction seemed to run in his family for sure with his dad and my dad. My dad was a working alcoholic for his whole military career. And I didn't even think anything about it. When you're a child of an alcoholic, it's just normal life. And I was the firstborn. And it wasn't until my parents' 25-year marriage dissolved and it was over the alcoholism issues that I really understood anything about it. It just seems normal when you're a child. And my father wasn't violent. He could get mean. He was a very intelligent man. But the alcohol just ruined really his relationships. And then I went to Al-Anon, and I couldn't believe how my own mail was read as the firstborn, and then my siblings down the line, and the clown and the pleaser, we all fit into one of the categories. And I was amazed that, gosh, this really wasn't normal. And having your father drink 24 bottles of beer a day, and buying cases and cases of beer when you're a teenager for your father per week wasn't normal life. But you don't even realize how much it affects you until you start dealing with addiction, maybe in your own life. And for me, I didn't drink. I couldn't drink. I seem to have had an allergy to alcohol, but I sure loved my sweets. And I understanding chemically that there's some relationship to not only the tendency towards addiction with nature, but that chemistry can switch to sugar. And that has been my battle in my life, is battling the addiction to sugar. I'm like all or nothing. I'm either having sugar for dinner, chocolate for dinner, or I have to go cold turkey. There's no in between. So I know that affected me in my life. I saw how it dissolved my parents' marriage, and and as a pleaser, being nurtured into the firstborn to please daddy, his perfectionistic nature really affected my life for a very long time, that I got healing from. But I was always drawn to the arts. My father was an entertainer. He has that Irish gift of storytelling, and it was on vaudeville when he was a young man, and could tell stories and do voices and acting. And I've always been drawn to the arts. I'm still acting in a troupe here in the low country of South Carolina, but I was very drawn to the arts. They would take us wherever we moved as a military family, take me to museums and galleries. And one time, and this was a defining moment in my life when I was a very young girl, I got to go to the New York World's Fair, where they brought Michelangelo's Pietà to New York City. And as the rest of my class wanted to go see the dinosaur exhibit, I was standing there in front of this incredible marble sculpture carved by one young man in his 20s. It was unbelievable to me. It was like, I knew it was a masterpiece, but in my very young, untrained mind, I knew it was a miracle. However a person could do this. You could see veins, and I wasn't raised in a religious home, so I didn't really know the story of Jesus and Mary, but I knew there was something spiritual happening to me when I looked at this. I couldn't stop crying. And believe me, that was very embarrassing to an elementary school child. It moved me so much. I immediately saw the power of art. And now, as I've studied a little bit of brain chemistry and neuroscience, there's even a category called neuroart, where looking at something like that releases serotonin, your happiness chemical. And it did that for me. And I became addicted, if you would, to seeing as much art and living close to cities where you can go to galleries and museums and see art from the centuries and generations. And I'm absolutely a tourist everywhere I go. I've got to see what I can see in the arts, and that translated into nature too. And I love people. So these are all areas that I wanted to do. And I wasn't a very good artist when I went to school. Went to art school. I chose art school. Being military, we were very physically oriented. So I was a college soccer player, but art was what I was drawn to. Did theater too as my minor, but I wasn't very good. I had good drawing teacher, and I base a lot of what I teach on these very good drawing teachers I had. But when I went to school, it was in the era of the abstract expressionist. And I like people, and, being turned on by Michelangelo's David, as well as his Pietà. I wasn't very interested in abstract expressionism. I wanted to make people look like people. I wanted to do, relate the beauty that I saw around me. And they did not like my work at all. They used expletives, as a matter of fact, in describing my work. And being the people pleaser that I grew up to be, I tried with all these different professors to please them. And the only way I could is with doing abstract expressionism, which wasn't from my heart. And it wasn't, and believe it or not, they convinced me I was a three-dimensional artist. So I went to grad school to be a sculptor in clay. And I love it. I do love it. But I would try for 20 years to finish a painting, and I couldn't. I was that shut down. And I really believe it's tied in because I was a pleaser. I wanted to please them. They were convinced I wasn't good enough. So guess what? I came into agreement with that. I wasn't good enough. Fortunately, I did run into someone who mentored me. He had been trained in the old school of the arts from Chicago Art Institute, and he taught me how to paint. He gave me the skills that I was lacking and I wasn't trained in. Even though I had my master's degree in art, I needed to learn to paint. And, using classical techniques that Michelangelo and our greats from history learned how to paint, studying the color wheel, understanding color theory, mixing and matching colors. And from that, I got the confidence I needed to get the skills I needed to do the art that came from my heart. So he changed my life. So I'm convinced mentorship helps. Getting healing from my soul really helped too. From, if you don't please yourself, you're not going to please anybody else. And I didn't even know who I was. I was a good actress. I don't know if you remember Carly Simon. Whoever you want is exactly who I'm more than willing to be. It's a emotional dependency theme song. And when people are saying, paint from your heart, I'm like, what? Who am I? I don't have any clue, because I've spent my whole life trying to be perfect, pleasing an alcoholic father. His words were cruel. He wasn't physically violent, but his words, he could be so sharp. And I'm sure, sober, that wouldn't have been the case, but I didn't know my dad too well sober. I knew him, under the influence, and it does affect your life.
Yeah. And what was that like for you? Take us back to Dad. Was there any major episodes that stood out to you that happened throughout your years that really kind of you remember?
He was very philosophical. My father had one of those memories, that almost photographic memories. He could remember everything he'd learned. He was extremely intelligent, very, very, very strong in his left brain skills, which I was not, always trying to live up to that kind of memorization skills and languages. And, he could remember poetry he'd learned 20 years earlier. But he would when he was under the influence, he'd want to talk before he fell asleep. And I would spend hours and hours listening and trying to understand, his philosophies. He'd even talk about communism or religion, and which he had rejected. He was an atheist. He tried to convince me there was no God, this was it, this was heaven or hell, and that. But there was something in me that just couldn't agree with that. It's like inside I knew there had to be something more than me. Had to be something more than this. So I never embraced his atheism. I was a seeker for sure. But you don't realize, when you're a child, you don't realize how much that is affecting you. I had a very sweet, kind, nurturing mother, but because he didn't respect that she wasn't educated, he didn't respect that, she wasn't an intellectual, but she took his meager sergeant's pay once a month and fed us and clothed us and made our clothes and made the food last. The thing she did was miraculous. But do you think I wanted to be like her and be a housewife and a homemaker? No, because that's not what my dad respected. Even though later in my life, I embraced becoming a mother, a wife, and a mother. I became absolutely, I devoted my 30 years of my life to my children. I homeschooled them and raised 4 children, and absolutely had to learn how to cook, had to learn how to sew, and things that I really rejected because it wasn't what was highest in my father's eyes. He did enjoy that she was a good cook. So I've always loved cooking. And, and I've said this probably 3 times, you don't realize how you can use whatever this strong influence is, how much it affects your life. And finding out who I really am was a journey underneath the layers of perfectionism and masks and whoever you want is who I'm willing to be, and never really getting in touch with the real self. And now I understand a lot of that has to do with the right brain, the right side of our brain. I'm called to be a creative. I call myself a creativity specialist. I've written books now that when I learned that my students are more rural, I'm from a more rural state, not where I grew up, and they've never been to museums and galleries. Most of these young people haven't been exposed to the beauty of the art world. And so I wrote a textbook for them with 1,800 images and a whole chapter of local artists who they can relate to. I have a great ethnic variety in my students. So I created a book like, this is a local low country artist who is Gullah. Grew up Gullah, which is a combination of Western African and English culture. And they were given in barrier islands after our Civil War in the 1860s. And their families were fishermen and farmers. And that's where this artist, Jonathan Green, was raised. He's the first artist from a Gullah culture he went to the Chicago Art Institute, and he tells stories of his world with such beauty, compassion, and joy. It's not all about, gee, my family came from slavery, isn't my life horrible? It's like, no, I was raised by loving people who gave me the world and taught me I'm loved and the beauty of my culture. And he uses a lot of color, and he embraces his world, and it's uplifting. And so this is the kind of work that I like to expose my young people to, even the greats of history, and so my motive for writing the book wasn't to become an author. It was to really truly help my students embrace their own culture, because we're Westerners, and we have a culture that we want to see as beautiful. And I hate a lot of what happened in our culture as art, in the art world and film. A lot of dark things happened, but I like to try to head him towards the light and the beauty and uplifting artists. It's not 100% the case, but give them what I think is good for them.
Yeah. And like you say, for you got turned onto art at a young age, and that's something you really enjoyed. But at the same time, there was that sort of balance between the people pleasing, the perfectionism coming out in the art, trying to please the professors. Tell us a bit more about that.
Oh, absolutely. you know, my father was very good about saying you can do and be whatever you want to do and be. And I embraced that. But inside, especially once I went to school and realized, you know what, I might have been able to shine, you know, in these arenas, but I was drawn, like I said, to the arts, to physical education, to the theater. And these are all professions that are very all consuming, you know, how do you, you know, I was very interested in all kinds of sports, all kinds of art, all kinds of theater. I was on the debate team, you know, I mean, it wasn't like there was only one thing I was interested in. And people say, oh yeah, you're, you know, jack of all trades and a master of none. And that's certainly the way I felt. And so there I'm in college and I'm taking, you know, I'm an athlete. I played soccer. I was part of every theatrical production, not necessarily on stage, but behind the scenes, you know, learning lighting, learning costuming, learning sound, you know, doing all of these different arenas because there's a lot of different jobs, you know. And I did find, because I was a gymnast in high school, that I enjoyed community sports and I enjoyed collaborative art. And that's probably what draws me to the stage, what draws me to filmmaking is the nature of collaboration. I'm definitely a people person. And, you know, I saw that in my dad and you know, he was in the community softball team. He was the pitcher and had always had a cigar sticking out of his mouth, even, you know, had on a cigar and he's pitching in these softball leagues. And, you know, trying to please him translated into trying to please my professors. And even it might have been easier in high school, but it wasn't so easy in college and graduate school. They weren't taking that at all. They had their own agenda. And I could not fit myself into their funnel, into their box at all. And it kind of derailed my creative life for about 20 years, I'd say,
Yeah,
before I got
because you
there.
were trying to fit into their box and their narrative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I presume for a lot of us that, you know, were raised in that kind of environment and alcohol, you know, under an alcoholic home or drugs or whatever the addiction is, gambling, you know, these things all have repercussions to the children and even divorce. See, my parents were the first ones to divorce out of all the family. And it you know, being a military family, you move around a lot. Home was New Jersey, but we didn't live there very much, only when dad went overseas. Most of the time wherever, you know, the military sent us, and family was our anchor. And now our family's in 3 different states, you know, just exploded. And it definitely was a shattering time. And yet when I began to really look at, and when I went to some, you know, Al-Anon meetings, and wow, you know, here's some dynamics I didn't understand.
Yeah, and for you, with the divorce, how old were you then, and what was it like to go through your parents divorcing?
Yeah, I was 19 and I was the oldest. Again, we were in 3 different states. My mom went back to New Jersey with my youngest brother. And the other sibling was still in high school where my dad was, and my other sister was in college in a different state. And so we were exploded. And, you know, sometimes one of my professors, he was trying to create parameters for us to do artwork, and he put words up on the board, said, you know, make something. What is this? How does this inspire you? And I was really trying to, at that time, find out who I was. And one of the words was silver. And I don't know if you know, if it's your tradition in your country, but silver is the 25th wedding anniversary, is what they call the silver anniversary. And here's my parents. It's literally 1 month before their silver wedding anniversary, and they're split up, they're divorced. And I had a party. I created an event of, I worked in a hotel, and I got the chef to bake me a wedding cake, and I found a couple and I broke them in half and put them on the cake, and I got black balloons and streamers, and I had a in memoriam 25th wedding anniversary party for my parents, and I got an A. I mean that doesn't say much about drawing or painting skills, but it was at least getting to the heart of where I was in my life. That was my way of expressing even my own grief. that my family that I relied on, that was the foundation of my life, it had exploded. And that's one way I dealt with it, was through art. And
Yeah. Yeah. And that was really important to you, that sense of art. But you also mentioned Al-Anon. And I wondered, for the audience, if you could just explain, what is Al-Anon for those who don't know? What is it and how did it help you?
yeah, Al-Anon is an outreach to family members, people who have been affected by another person's alcoholism. And my father went through a little bit of therapy when my mom left, and that was one of the requirements, to have somebody go with them to participate, to understand. And I did it for my dad again, trying to place him, but I was shocked at how really meaningful and impactful it was for me. And so I recommend, getting help. It is part of our humbling process when we hit places where we know is bigger than us, problems that are bigger than us, deeper than we can do by ourselves. Get help. We're not, we are herd animals. I know I am. I'm definitely love people. And if COVID didn't show us anything, it's our need for community, and being forced to stay home and not, see anybody, even though we learned how to reach out on Zoom better, didn't we? It was difficult, and I can't imagine the repercussions maybe for little children that went through that. I had 2 grandchildren born during their 2 Corona babies. But had all that time with their parents. I will say that everybody was home in Germany. I have 2 sons in Germany, and they married beautiful German women, and there they were with their babies. And it's hard to imagine what a 5-year-old going through that. Suddenly I have to wear a mask, or I can't go to school, or a 7-year-old. How much impact? We're going to find out, I'm sure. What the repercussions are of being separated from people, being forced. And if you're used to being part of a church community, and now you can't go to church, and now you can't have your Bible study, or your youth group, or what all of that is. Shoom. I know when I went to visit my children in Germany in 21, they had just opened up the country after over 2 years. Or no, I guess 15 months. They'd been completely shut down, and they weren't done, but they opened up. And the young people were out all night just running the streets. And you wouldn't anywhere say, oh, I can't go to sleep, because not only do I have jet lag, but there's young people just partying everywhere. They were so happy to be together. I couldn't deny them that at all. They were riding the streetcars. They were whooping it up and just having a blast, because they could come out of their houses and be together for the first time. Unfortunately, about 6 weeks later, they shut the country down for another 15 months. But for that little brief time, you could see what their need to be together did for them. And so it's good to get help, is the whole point of that story.
Yeah. It's good to get help, and it's good to reach out. And what are some of the things that helped you along your journey? You mentioned Al-Anon, art. Were there any other things that come to mind?
Yeah, theater, being part of theater and filmmaking, where it's, again, community. It takes an army. You think it takes a village to raise a child? Well, hello, it takes an army to do a movie. Even if you're an independent filmmaker, and we're not in the hub of Hollywood here in the low country of South Carolina. We have Charleston, which is a very beautiful location. We have a beautiful city, and we do have others, but you need so many different job descriptions, and having everybody bring their little piece of excellence, their little piece of specialty in, and together we've got one goal. We've got this one story. And I had the opportunity last year to be part of a missions outreach in Uganda, and this church has rescued these young people literally from the most horrific things I could ever even imagine. And I was very scared, to be honest. My tender heart was how am I gonna deal with this? But they were so full of joy, these young people. They have nothing. They live on a cement floor. They have an outside place where they cook. They have a cement building where they have holes in the ground for latrines, and pumps where they get water. And they are so happy, and they found this redemption in their lives through this young pastor and his wife have opened up this place. There's incredible discipline. I was so, it's a different culture, obviously. They do speak English if they've been educated. If they haven't, they speak Ugandan. So it's a country of two languages, because they were a British colony, and drive on the left, and things I wasn't familiar with from here in the West. But I was there to do art with them and do a little bit of storytelling. Their pastor had a vision for them being in filmmaking. And I knew I went there going, I'm not moving to Uganda. I mean, I'm too much of an American. I can't move here, just like I can't really move to Germany, even though my children are there. Um, I really embrace these young people and their stories. And they finally were able, most of the time, get Wi-Fi, get some internet. And I do film school with them. And it's a great joy. It's not working every week, but we've already produced one short film. We're working on the script for a second film, as I'm pulling out of them their stories and what they can relate to. And they want to just tell redemptive stories, what they've experienced in freedom from what they were raised in. They've found, joy and peace, and they have things to express. They dance like crazy. It's so fantastic. And when they have church, I'm talking 7-8 hours, they have church. And it was so fun. And I love to dance. So I let them teach me how to dance. And they just thought, here's this old American lady dancing with us. And it was beautiful. And they are absolutely precious. Matter of fact, when I finish this call, I'll be having my film class with them, if they can get online. And we're working on our second movie. And they're going to change their world. They are going to make such an impact because of these people that rescue them and got them out of the darkest places. I feel like, wow, my art career was shut down for 20 years. Oh, sad me. And then you see what they've overcome, and you think, I've not dealt with anything compared to what other people, and it really does change your perspective. And I think any of us that have either personally fought addiction or been raised in addiction, sometimes that's what community can do, make you see, you know what? There's worse stories, and I can recover from this. It's not going to define me. It's going to be part of my story, but it's not going to anymore define me. I'm no longer a people pleaser. I'm no longer someone that has to hide behind masks of who I am. Even if I am, I'll be 70 on my birthday. I'm embracing my aging. I'm part of the great baby boomer generation, and we are not done. We're not done making a difference and doing as much as we can to give to this world.
Yeah. And you said, like you say, you don't have to be a people pleaser anymore. How do you not be a people pleaser?
You can't get over that unless you find out who you really are. Because what does people pleasing really mean? It means somewhere inside, I don't think I'm good enough. Just like those professors made me feel I wasn't good enough. And my father didn't make me feel like I wasn't good enough. There was some place in me that knew I wasn't. And you know what? It's okay, because we don't have to be perfect to be loved. We don't have to be perfect at something to love it. There are way better artists than me. I'm not the world's best artist, but the joy I get from it and the joy I can give through it is worth it. And I've seen artists so eat up with perfectionism, it shut them down 100%. They could not paint anymore. They couldn't sculpt anymore because they weren't Michelangelo, because they couldn't be Van Gogh or Picasso or whoever their idol is in the arts. It's like, how do we be ourselves? And I think that takes, I'm a spiritual person. I think it takes God. It helps to know that you're loved unconditionally, warts and all, so to speak, even if we haven't been loved that way, by maybe our significant others, our parents, or our significant other, or our siblings. There is one who loves us completely, who's counted and numbered our hairs, and I have long hair, and this is really long hair. and it changes moment by moment. You know how many hairs I have. So there is a God who's interested in me, and embracing my, if you want to call him higher power, I call him Jesus Christ or Holy Spirit, and he's freed me from that. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. I can't be perfect enough, and so I'm not worthy of love. Is that I'm perfectly loved, and that way I can strive to become the best I am. I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. My husband came from a very abusive family, so abusive that he became a dissociator. He mentally, because the sexual abuse was so chronic, before the age of 6, his brain dissociated into different parts, whatever you want to call it. He didn't know that about himself for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, he knew about abuse in his teens that he could remember. And watching him unfold out of those things, because dissociation works in childhood to protect a child from those memories, those thoughts, those experiences. It doesn't work so well in adulthood. Once the adult gets in a safe place, they leak. Those memories start leaking, either in dreams or in visions. I don't know how much experience you've had with that, but he had become a drug addict very young. And I knew that drugs were a symptom of what was going on. And we've been married 31 years, and I've watched my husband walk out of that addiction, walk out of sexual addiction issues. He had unwanted same-sex attractions, and he lived in the homosexual lifestyle for 12 years. Thought that's who he was, but he never really embraced it in his heart. He knew that wasn't really who he was. And it's like me. I can say, I'm not going to eat chocolate today. But does that mean I don't want to eat chocolate today? How do you change your desire system? And you can't change your desire system without help. And for him, he embraced a man who shared the gospel with him, and he just completely left his world and said, now, I'm going to rebuild my life in a different way. He was suicidal. He was drug addicted. And I met him after that on his road to recovery. And I've watched him struggle and learn not just who he wasn't, but who he really was. And he's 73 years old, and I'm turning 70, and we're having the time of our life together. Our marriage, and we had 2 children together, besides him being a stepdad to my boys, older boys. And I'm so respect and honor him for the courage to change what he didn't want about himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't know anybody that doesn't have something in their life they're not happy with. We just like focus on it. Oh, gee, I wish I had a bigger lips, or I don't know, I got my nose is too big, whatever it is. Or we fixate on these things that we haven't or we aren't, when there's so much to celebrate about who we really are. And now watching my husband not just get the layers off like an onion of peeling off what he didn't want about him, and forgiveness and letting go of all that stuff, and then he started embracing who he was really meant to be. And he's a musician, and he's an artist, and now he's writing a book, and it's so fun to see those pieces come together for him into being just, I'm really praying for 30 more years at least together. and seeing what else happens for us. We're writing a book together called An Unlikely Marriage, because it's been so fun and hard. We had 10 hard years. Whew. Not only 2 little boys that didn't want to be there, but then having our own children. We had our daughter in our mid 40s. So life has really been about building a family from broken people, and finding strength, in God, finding strength in each other, and community. We are part of community, and we didn't stop being community during COVID. We never did. We have family that left us during that season because they didn't agree with what we were doing, but we're like, we need each other and we're not going to stop. So
Yeah, you've maintained that community. And I mean, as you know, two people who have come from a background of trauma, what challenges have you had being in a relationship together and having kids and living life? What kind of challenges have you experienced?
all the ones you can imagine. um, my husband, I consider him very brave. Not only did he marry a woman, which was never his heart's desire, he was marrying a woman with 2 little boys who didn't want him either. But he really felt, he loved me. We were friends for 3.5 years. We were in ministry together through our church. And we met in church. My joke is I met my first husband in a bar and my second husband in church. I recommend the second way better. I was actually, working in a bar in graduate school, and he was the happy hour entertainer. My first husband was a musician also. But he also was a dentist in the Army. So anyway, that's another whole story. But yeah, learning how to be a blended family. Oh my goodness. In this world where 50% of marriages end in divorce, you've got all these family situations, blended family situations. And it's taken a lot to overcome, rejection. That's one reason why we homeschooled. We brought them home because they weren't fitting in school. My musician right brain kids did not do well under that academic standard. And it's interesting because in Germany, they teach English to adults, they teach American. And it's just so ironic how hard it was to teach them, correcting how to get through school and all the things you had to do with the left brain when they're so right brain strength. And, all of us and trying to raise them to be who they are. When you go through that discovery for yourself, then you want to be that kind of parent that allows them to discover who they were really meant to be. And I don't understand why our kids can't just inherit our good parts. Why do they have to inherit the bad parts too? It's like, what? I've dealt with that. Why do you have to deal with that too? So yeah, that's one of the funny things is keeping the relationships open and honest. And thank God for Zoom, because that's how I can communicate, or through WhatsApp, communicate with my children that live 6,000 miles away. And then I have one that lives about an hour away, and one that lives about 15. The one I see the least is the one that lives 15 minutes away. But it seems like, the challenges of child rearing, homeschooling, and I can tell you, there's no selfish homeschool parents. I mean, we're all selfish, but if you homeschool, you've laid your life down for your children in a different way. And I'm not trying to idolize it, because it's very difficult, especially if you're very right brain like I am. And that was one of the first things after a failed first semester, is get help. Oh yeah, take your own advice, get help. And at first it's bartering. If you teach science to my kids, I'll teach art to yours. We can barter. And then we built a co-op, and we had PE for them, and choir and languages. And I taught art and filmmaking, and my kids could get community with other children at least once a week that way. And it was a great situation. We went from like 30 families, and there's like 600 families in that same co-op now. I'm happy to not. I passed my classes off to one of my students who went on to be an artist and an art teacher. Still one of my closest friends. Yeah. I've been doing it long enough. Now I've worked with some of their children.
Yeah, and the cycle continues and goes round, which is lovely, that the cycle of life continuing. And I mean, one thing you've mentioned a few times is religion. And what has religion meant to you throughout your life? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, my father was raised a Catholic, and unfortunately, part of what started him on this bad road was the abuse of a Catholic priest. He was an altar boy. He never has said that out loud. I got told by God that was what he was dealing with. So he was never going to be an abuser. His father was an abuser. And so he didn't touch his children. He never abused us, thank God. But he also wasn't affectionate. He wasn't able to really be open. It really, truly affected him. And so his atheism, he didn't just throw out religion. He threw out God. It's like he threw the baby out with the bathwater. So he was trying to live a life without God because he blamed God for the things that had happened to him. And my mom came from a very cultural church also. She was Norwegian. She's a first generation American, didn't even speak English when she started school in America in Brooklyn, New York, and Teaneck, New Jersey. There was a huge Scandinavian community, so they could be in America. My mom was born in America, but she didn't speak any English for 6 years of her life. And that was because it was a huge intermingled community, but they were Lutherans. Like if you were asked my grandmother, are you a Christian? She'd say, of course, I'm not Jewish. It's like you do, the religion was part of your identity, but it really didn't have as much to do with relationship with God as I could see. With beautiful churches with both my Catholic grandmother and my, the cathedrals with the sculptures and the high ceilings and the Gothic architecture in Jersey City. And then the other one with the wood, all the wood and beautiful carvings of the Lutheran. They were beautiful buildings. I loved them. And they meant a lot to me. But when my father married my mother in 1950, the Catholic Church, excommunicated him, which by that time he could care less. And, so religion was not something honored in my home at all. It was, and I don't still honor religion. Religion is like man's attempt to get to God, when what I've embraced is relationship with the God that made me. He's creator and I'm a creativity specialist. Where did I get my creativity? Hello, I was made in his image. And that creativity, when we deny it, is in part of kind of denying that there is one greater than us. So I might have rejected religion, to please my dad, but I never rejected God in my heart. I didn't know him yet, but there was something inside of me said, if there ain't something more than me, I'm in big trouble. I knew it. And God gave me a Christian roommate who was an early childhood education major who wore dresses to school. I didn't even own a dress. She's roommates with this bohemian theater arts girl, who had nothing in common with her. And she prayed for me for 2 years. Of course, I didn't know that. What did I know? And she invited me to a little meeting, and there I went crying. And I was so embarrassed, my little hard heart, I don't want religion. And read this little brochure for, the spiritual laws. I said, you know what, that, I'm a sinner. I knew that. He died to save me, and I can have freedom and have eternity with God. Oh, I that sounds really good. It was like a logical decision. And I prayed the little prayer. I didn't know I was saved. I didn't know any of the lingo. I'd never read the Bible. I didn't know anything about anything. And it took a while. It was part of my journey, but I never stopped being a seeker. And I admire people that are seekers, wherever they are. I don't disrespect anybody's seeking journey. And because we've all got to find that relationship for ourselves. But I know that it helped me overcome all these things that affected me, from my father's alcoholism, from my own addiction, and addictive nature, if you would, and embrace that I'm not enough because I needed him, not because I'm not good enough or not lovable. And built a beautiful life. I've watched my husband struggle so much more because he had such an abusive start. So I know some people who've lived under addiction have had some really rough things happen. And
Yeah.
I don't envy them at all. But I'm just saying, there's help. Get help. Find a way to. And that's one of the good things in America. I presume you have AA in Australia as well. AA is, they tell people to embrace the higher power, and it's like, how are you going to change? Like I said, how can my husband change his desire system? It's I've watched him change his desire. And my first husband left me for 40 for a 20-year-old with a 1-year-old and 3-year-old. And so the fact that my husband isn't looking at other women is not a problem to me. And his joke is, we live at the beach, we live near the beach. And he's like, well, we take our family to the potato beach. And that means everybody is built like potatoes. And, there's no temptation, because men are visual, right? You go to a beach where there's all these volleyball, built young men, that's not good for his soul. So he doesn't go there. He doesn't watch those kind of movies. He's going to keep his eye gate, if you would, straight ahead. And we can both admire, look at that beautiful woman, knowing that there's not going to be a lustful transference, because he's going to want that beautiful woman any more than I love beauty too. I love beautiful women. I love beautiful clothes and, flowers. He brings me flowers. He's the decorator in my family. I'm not. I make things and I paint and draw and sculpt, but he's the decorator, and he can be the best decorator. But he's been a faithful husband, 100% faithful husband. And whew, that's a blessing in this time and age,
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. It sounds like a real privilege to have that relationship, and also to have religion in your life that made such a big difference.
Yeah. And we have it together. We're ministers. We have a home fellowship called Imagine Gatherings with a whole bunch of other artists and musicians and dancers and singers and songwriters and banner makers who don't really feel like they fit in, maybe in religion. A lot of religion doesn't allow us to be ourselves. And we can play music, we cook, we eat, we fellowship, we pray together, and whoever has a word, and we sing and dance and praise God. Drums, we must have 15 drums in our house. I brought back a drum from Uganda when I was there last year, and a little drum stool, and it's got a goat skin 3-legged stool for drummers. We have a lot of djembes and different hand drums. So people, no matter what age, when we were raising our children, they were all raised to bang on drums and dance and sing, whatever. And so we're free to be creative in our religion, but I hope we don't make it too religious.
Yeah. And speaking of creativity, what kind of work do you do now in terms of like art and therapy, and like the therapeutic benefits of art? Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I'm so glad you asked that, Lou. Thank you. I've told a little bit about my college students and my Ugandan film students, but I also have an online business where I like to help people who feel stuck in their creativity. They really haven't figured out how to get into touch with their own right brain brilliance, which is incredible. And as I learn more about it and study neuroarts, finding out that the left brain part of our logic and sequential time and memorization and all these incredibly gifts that you embrace, and we learn and get honored with in school, is meant to serve this creative kind of more spider web thinking outside the box that is problem solving through thinking differently than the left brain. And when you get focused on some creative output, there is no time. You're not even thinking about what time it is. And so that left brain was really made to serve the right brain. But, you ask a room full of 5-year-olds, for instance, do you like to sing or dance or color or bang on the drums or act? Almost 100% will say yes. And you ask a room of 15-year-olds that same question, maybe 10% say yes. And then there's the guy with headphones on, or, listen to Led Zeppelin, from my generation, by the way. But most of them don't believe they are creative. What's happened in those 10 years? And maybe you don't have it so bad there in Australia, but I can tell you in America, it's so left brain oriented, even SATs and what your scores are. And now these schools have every year, they actually teach towards answering these questions on these very left brain type of measures of intelligence and education that are skipping and squashing and bruising that very sensitive part of our brain. And it's the part that's got imagination and intuition and has so much life and is more in touch with our spirit man, with our creator of the universe. So you squash that, then that's not the voice you're able to hear so well. So I consider myself on a mission to stir up people's creativity. I asked God what my redemptive gift was, and went to sleep. And the next morning I heard clear as a bell from my left brain inside, you stir up the creative in others. I can embrace that. I get joy out of that, and I love giving that joy. And that's what I've seen happen. People feel shut down. Oh, I can't draw. I can't draw a stick figure. I can't draw a straight line. Well, you know what? If I need to draw a straight line, I use a ruler, just like normal people. But what's wrong with a stick figure anyway? Is it represented? I've watched teaching all ages, starting out teaching little children, and they are, a box and a triangle is their house, right? And then their house. That's where they live. But then that prefrontal cortex starts developing, and this is a little slower usually in little boys than little girls. When it hits, all of a sudden they can see, oh, that doesn't look like my house at all. That doesn't look like my mom at all. I guess I just can't draw. Unless they get encouraged and trained in that season when they're developing, they really believe it. They enter their teen years and they think, I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't draw, I can't, do any of that stuff, because they didn't have somebody that could take them from that part of development and really show them their own creative genius. Writing, journaling, being encouraged to write. I encouraged my sons from very little. They didn't like writing, but Art, write what you're thinking of. What did you do today? What meant something to you today? And forcing them to do it. And even there's a tendency in our, this new thing of not teaching children cursive writing. How do you write your own signature if you don't know how to read cursive writing? It's unbelievable, because there's something creative about creating a signature. It is another way to engage your right brain and stir it up. So it's diabolical, to be honest. It's diabolical. I believe in God, but I also believe there's evil forces at work too, and you can't go to Africa and not see a lot of that. And those children know about witchcraft. They know about the powers of darkness for sure, and why they're so evangelistic when they've found the light and found life and love and beauty. They don't want to go back. So, I want to challenge you too, Luke. We talked about this. I know this is a podcast, you have listeners, and I'm going to describe what we're going to do, but I am a visual artist, and that's what I teach. I teach people how to embrace their creativity. And one way to do that is to get out of a performance left brain criticism. I create a safe place with no criticism, no judgment. Those are all left brain bullies. We got to get out of that bully side of our brain and say, I'm going to let myself try something new, something that's not product or production oriented, like noodling on the piano, or noodling with the guitar, or noodling with the pencil or pen, or just writing. Nobody's going to read it but you. It can just be a flow of consciousness that is not criticized. And even writing, learning to write is like, don't edit while you write. Just let it flow. If that's what you feel, just write it. Don't worry about punctuation and capitalization and all of the rules of writing. There are people really good at that can help you, right? Just like there's people really good at editing out, right? So a lot of these techniques that I teach are how to get people out of left brain, because just doing it is you're using your left brain. It's not either or. You want to build these neural pathways that connect left and right brain. And so that's what we're going to do. Are you willing to let me talk through this, Luke?
Yeah, we're going to go through it together. And for anyone listening, you can head over to YouTube. The link's in the description. You can come and watch me and Karen do this live and watch us kind of draw through it. So yeah, let's go ahead, Karen, take me through it.
And I'll describe it for you, those listening. You can do this, because the first thing you're going to need is unlined paper. So we've all got computer paper somewhere, copy paper somewhere in the house. We're going to start with what's called contour line drawings. Contour line drawings are the basis of art. Drawing is the basis of all art. Being able to draw can open up the world into any kind of other creativity. And it starts with lines. And we're going to do exercises called line contours. But first, you're going to lay your hand that you don't draw with on your paper, and you're going to draw around it, starting with your wrist, and go wrist to wrist and follow the lines. I've got some nice, beautiful wrinkles and all kinds of lines on my hand, but we're just going to do an outline. So this is, you can call it a silhouette or an outline. So when you remove your hand from the paper after going all the way around, ta-da, you've got a hand, right? Ta-da, very good. All right, now you can turn your paper over. And this time we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at our hand though in the air. Okay. And once you put your hand on the paper, yeah, you can hold it up. Now on a new sheet of paper, you're going to look at the paper where you put your pen. And then now you're going to be like following an ant going around your hand. You're going to follow. And as your eyes move around your fingers, your pen is going to move around the paper. You're not looking at the paper. You're only looking at your hand. So your brain is taking in the details of your own hand. And as you draw it, be slow and methodical. And again, no criticism, no judgment. Don't worry about what it looks like, because no matter what it looks like, it's going to look like a hand in the end. Okay. And you are taking that information into your brain. And I like to work big. So there's a blind contour. Yay! Well done, Luke. Woohoo! We always put artist sign at the bottom right, at least with your initials and today's date. And you're going to be able to look at that. Very good. And you can even write blind contour so you know what you're doing. What this is called. Now, there are all kinds of contours. That's only one kind. But this, now you are engaging your right brain. And it feels good. There's actually literally a release of serotonin. If you were to do 15 to 18 minutes a day, some way of engaging your right brain, it can be taking a walk, noticing the clouds, noticing the trees, noticing the people or the architecture. 15 minutes and it starts engaging the right brain and to work together with your left brain. Journaling, if you're a journaler, just 15 to 20 minutes a day. It unlocks and releases that left brain and right brain. You'll find solutions to problems. The joke is singers, you know where they learn to sing? In the shower. There is some freedom about singing in the shower that releases the right brain. All right, so you want to try another drawing?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, now this time, now I know we're on camera and it's already hard to do, but you're going to draw me. You're going to go from one shoulder where I have a bun here. I got these nice spikes on top. It takes me hard work to get those spikes just right. And then you're going to come down to my other shoulder. So again, you're not looking at your paper. Going shoulder to shoulder. I don't care if I look like an alien or, whatever, but you're going shoulder to shoulder and your eyes are following along. I even have but you're not doing my eyes. You're not doing my mouth. You're only doing a silhouette, an outline of basically my hair and an earring, maybe by the time you get to the other shoulder. Now, if you rush through this, you'll miss all those wonderful spiky doos I got happening. And so a lot of times it's impatience that causes people to miss the details, because drawing is all about the details. How'd you do?
I feel embarrassed now showing you.
Don't be embarrassed. No, you got the spikes. Yay! Look at that. That's fantastic. That is exactly what starts releasing. And look at you. I can see the joy on your face. There is a joy in it. All right, we're going to try one more, okay? You got time for one more? All right, now something a little easier. And I'll try to hold it where it's really close in the screen. Of course, this does better if people are live in front of you or the object is live in front of you. So you're only doing one line. So you're not doing that cute little heart in the middle, right?
Yeah.
You
So
do have a little,
just going around it.
you're just going around it. So it's got some interesting profile-y stuff with,
And so I do the bottom bit as well, right? So like all the way around, yeah?
Yeah, go all the way around. Again, you're not looking at your paper. Once you put your pen down, you're just going around. What this is doing, there's a couple of things it's doing. Besides releasing that right brain, You're engaging your left and right brain together, very active doing it. You're creating neural pathways between your left and right brain. You are also putting in your memory banks. Next time someone says, oh, what does a bell look like? It doesn't have to look like this, but you'll pull from your memory bank. Maybe it's from a photo you've seen, but maybe it's for one you've drawn. It creates, yay, super. Couldn't resist adding that one line across.
That's my perfectionism. I couldn't help it. I just had to do the line. That was my perfectionism.
Well, the truth is, contours also, you could do my lamp and you could add the little details. So gradually I let my students start looking at their paper a little bit to come back to add some details. Then we do something as complicated as these incredible fall flowers, where you literally not even looking at the paper as you go in and out of these petals. Can you see these intricate, beautiful petals that are just miracles? And then you can look at your paper to do the stem and then go to where the next flower is. But the more you force yourself to look at what you're drawing and see it and look it, and as you draw it, you're embracing it. You're engaging your right brain, you're going to feel good. And you can disassociate yourself from the product. And guess what? You inevitably get better. I mean, I have had 100% of people improve their drawing skills, no matter where they start, because this works. This is a classical approach. This is not something I made up. It worked for me. It enabled me to become a better drawer. And even if you end up an abstract expressionist, which is awesome, you have some context that is inside of you to what are you going to abstract? You're going to start with something that's non-abstracted to abstract it. And then I have a whole classes on color theory and learning how to use the color wheel to find colors and match and mix colors. And I make them do their own skin tones. Like I said, my classes have a great deal of ethnic variety, and it's so beautiful to just start saying, well, what color are we? Are we really black and white and red and yellow, black? No, we're just these incredible shades of tans and browns and creams and peaches. And it's just, why would we not embrace our variety? We've got 10 different fingerprints, all 7.5 billion of us on this planet. Why do we want to be the same? It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I know there's a lot of people worried about AI and job security, because guess what AI is? It's all left brain, it can't think creatively like a human embracing their right brain creativity. So I say, whatever you're struggling with, whether it's your own addiction or someone else's addiction or raised in it, whether it's just a constant temptation, whatever it is, I say, and I've seen this work, embrace the power of art to heal. I have a program called Art as Self-Therapy, Wellness Through Creativity. And I've got so many incredible stories of physical healing, emotional healing, mental healing from people embracing their creative right brain, that I'm just beginning to define it and explore it, because I've seen it in action. I got to see it happen before I really could explain what it was. Do I have time for one story? Or
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
One story of a young man who grew up in my studio, and I make moms, when they brought their children and paid for art classes, I gave them the opportunity to take the classes, and many of them took me up on it and discovered their own creative gifts. Never too late, never too old. Embrace it at any point. And he struggled with ADD and dyslexia. So he had some learning disabilities, but he was thriving in art, and that confidence was helping him emotionally in other arenas of his life. He even won first place in his age in the largest youth art competition in the Low Country. And not only did he win his age group, but he got best in show of the entire show. It was a batik that he did in my studio. 3 months later, after they went to Disney World, he got a sinus infection that gave him a brain infection. He got a traumatic brain injury and a stroke. And he almost died. They didn't expect him to live, but he did. But he was paralyzed on his right side. And he was in the hospital 4 months, was starting to get a little bit of mobility, starting to get a few words, couldn't communicate very well. So as soon as he got out of the hospital, his mom brought him back to my studio. And I endeavored to teach him to draw left-handed. Well, I don't get it. I'm left-handed. Why can't you use your left hand? Right? No. But this young man started drawing with his left hand, and in hardly any time at all could draw as well as he could with his right hand. I was astounded. His mom was astounded, but even more so, his neurosurgeon called me. He's like, I've never called somebody's art teacher before. What are you doing with this young man? He's stronger with his weak hand than I am, and I'm a surgeon. And I'm like, I don't know. He's just, but those neural pathways he had developed as a creative person were still working for him. It was such a revelation. I mean, has a plastic skull, for goodness sakes. And yet he can start drawing and writing left-handed because of what those abilities with embracing his right brain happened for him. 10 years later, he walks, he talks, he still has a little delay in his, my name is David, but it's there. His words are there. He can walk. He's still getting strength in his left hand, but he still can write and draw with his left hand. And then another woman, one more story real quick. One of the moms got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and she was really given a very poor prognosis, maybe 6 months. While I was working on a big art project for a huge show in Spoleto, and that the next spring, where I was doing a whole room installation. It was all in porcelain, and it was called Taste and See Sweet Shop. And it was all going to be cakes and candies and cookies and pedestals, all made out of porcelain. The whole place was going to look like a chocolate factory. Let's embrace my own addiction, right? And I brought her into the studio to work with me. She's really good. She started just doing above and beyond what I could have done myself. Plus, I could have never had the time. And we worked. She didn't know if she'd even be at the show. But I watched as she got excited, would find more things to use, to create all these cookies and candies. And you can see some samples on my website or KarenDeLoachArt.com. So a couple of pieces are on there. This room installation was so effective that people came into the room expecting to buy chocolates, which were all made out of porcelain. We even had a chocolate case, with cakes and cookies and pies and pedestals. We did the table coverings and wall hanging and the whole thing. And she was there. She was there to help work the show. And 10 years later, she's still cancer-free.
Yeah, that's amazing.
She was going through chemo, radiation, mastectomy, reconstruction, all during that year we worked together. But she had something else to think about, something else to engage her emotions in her mind. She had that great satisfaction. And now I understand she was having serotonin release, the happiness chemical, every day. And her sense of humor never left for one moment. And, we just laughed, and, it's like whatever else was going on physically with her, emotionally, she was engaged with her right brain. So yeah, I'm a zealot because I'm so convinced at what the arts can do in every human. We're made that way. That's who we are. And so whatever addiction and whatever struggles and trials you're walking through, I believe in the power of art to heal. And I say, embrace it yourself.
No, that's amazing, Karen. That's amazing. And where can people go to find out more about you and have a look at your course and all those kind of things? Where do you want people to go?
Yeah, www.KarenDeLoachArt.com. I have a book that I'd kind of teach some of these principles I've talked about. Art as self-therapy, 5 tips for a healthier soul. So, about the no criticism zone, and tell a little bit more about David. And I have a picture of David in there in that story. So, get that free book. I'm happy to have you download that free book. Hope you will, and embrace your own creative journey, all of you, however it works.
To everyone listening, we'll put all of Karen's links down in the description, so you can go there and have a look at it. And yeah, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, Karen.
Oh, my pleasure. You're a great listener. You're good at this.
Well, thanks very much.
And podcasting is very creative.
No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Well, yeah, thanks very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. God bless.